really does hold you back in a lot of ways. You don't really, it can prevent you from taking risks, from growing, from accomplishing amazing things because you're afraid. Then the flip side to that coin is hope. What if we lived in a place of hope instead of fear? I hope this will do well. I hope I can accomplish this. And it just that small little perspective shift going from fear to hope changes everything.
To this week's episode of Girl X, a weekly conversation with an inspiring woman. I'm your host, Cooper Gillespie, and you heard author and cancer survivor Kim Tronic at the top of the episode talking about a realization she had as a result of her cancer experience. Her story is so inspiring, and I cannot wait for you to hear our conversation. But first, I thought I'd give you a little update on what's been going on. Yesterday was my birthday, and I took some time to just celebrate with a really small group of friends who I've been sheltering in place with for the last couple of months. And it was really small and magical, and it felt so good to unplug. I did not check my phone, and it felt so good to just be present with people I love. And so that's one of my goals for this next year, is just to unplug more and take time for the people who are important in my life. I would love to hear from you. If you want to drop me a DM on Instagram at girlpod, and let me know if you have any wins or challenges you're facing, or if you just like an episode. I am here for all of it. So hit me up. I'd love to hear from you. And we had our first Ask Pallavi column this week. If you would like advice from a real therapist, then go to gxrlpod.com, click on Ask Pallavi, and you can ask a real therapist any question, anything you're dealing with in life, and she will respond to you, which is so cool. So I'm super excited about that. All right. Without further ado, I think there were more key takeaways from this episode than any other so far, because Kim just has so many great morsels of wisdom on how to live your fullest life. Kimberly Tronic, a freelance copywriter living in Los Angeles, is a 2-time stage 3 ovarian cancer survivor. Despite losing her hair, ovaries, uterus, spleen, and breasts, she gained a whole new attitude and perspective. Kimberly documented the journey in her memoir, Dear Diary, Does This Cancer Make My Ass Look Fat?, a collection of diary entries that depicts her new sense of self among the baldness, breakdowns, and breakthroughs. Through her writing, volunteering, and speaking opportunities, Kimberly is determined to share her tumor humor with anyone facing challenges in their own life. Because a little darkness doesn't have to dampen your spirit, and laughter is always the perfect prescription. So here she is, everyone, Kim Tronic.
Oh, girl, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. Look at that dope little setup you got. I love it.
I'm podcasting in my bedroom.
A new reality, my friend.
I know, isn't it weird? But I'm loving that through the magic of technology, it can be like we're almost in the same room.
Exactly. I would be a lot more depressed without Zoom and FaceTime and the beauty that is Wi-Fi, basically.
So in your email, you were like, I love talking about cancer, which is not something that most people would love to talk about. And reading your book, I was really struck by what a great attitude you had about it and how you were able to add humor to that really horrifying experience. And so I thought, maybe we'd talk a little bit about that. Just was that your natural reaction, or did you make a point to come at it from a lighter, not lighter, but just you were able to have humor about it?
Sure. So that's a great question. Inherently, I'm just like super hyperactive. I'm super loud. I'm sarcastic. I love jokes. And I think I was blessed with that attitude just naturally. That's how my mom is. That's how my brothers are. So I'm lucky that I inherited that temperament, that outlook from my mom, so that when this whole craziness struck, I really was able to embrace, I guess, like the joking aspect of things and looking at it from this mostly positive lens. But the truth is, I mean, look, cancer is terrifying. It's really scary. It's really surreal to look at your own mortality, especially at like 36. Like, really? What? Like, do I not have a lot of time left? It's really surreal. But again, having the inherent humor and the inherently positive attitude really just served me so well. And there was a particular moment that I think is kind of fun and interesting that also helped set the tone for how I coped with everything. I'm very into comedy. I go to comedy shows all the time. I'm not a comedian, but I love laughing. So before the diagnosis, I was going to comedy shows, improv and Comedy Store and all around Los Angeles. And I got the diagnosis. And one of the first things I did was go to Amoeba on Sunset. And I was like, I'm going to just stock up on good music. I'm going to get some comedy CDs, just try and pump the mood up as much as I can. And one of the CDs was from this legendary comedian named Tig Notaro. And I didn't know this at the time, but the CD I happened to grab of hers was of this legendary set she did over on La Cienega at, actually, is it Largo? I forget. Now the venue is escaping me. But Tig Notaro has been through so much. She almost died from this infection called C. diff. And then she had a rough breakup. And then her mom passed away. And then she gets this cancer diagnosis that she has cancer in both breasts, right? So this poor woman has been through the most insane ringer you can possibly imagine. 4 days after that breast cancer diagnosis, she gets up on stage and does like a 30-minute set and pretty much just talks about cancer. And coming off of that kind of news, and then immediately 4 days later, getting up on stage and dissecting this news, she's still processing, right? But somehow she takes the audience on this journey with her. And I'm sitting in the car listening to this right after my own diagnosis. And I was like, whoa, if she can laugh at this, then why can't I? So it's almost like that comedy CD gave me permission to view it that way. And that really was a pivotal moment for me, learning that like, oh, okay, if Tig Notaro can do it this way, I can do it that way. So that really set the blueprint for how I was able to, I think, cope with things the way I did. So that comedy CD changed everything for me. I don't think I would have been able to deal with it the way I did without sort of getting permission, if you will, by Tig.
Yeah. Hearing how someone else deals with it can help us. That's interesting. She had breast cancer, right?
Yep.
And in your book, one of the things that made me laugh is you were talking about when you're deciding to get a mastectomy and you're like, maybe I'll get some really huge breasts, not like my normal 36Ds. And I'm like, 36Ds are pretty big. I was like, how big does she want to go?
I got greedy. Like comically big, of course. If you're not going to get absurdly large fake breasts, right? Like, what's the point of cancer, in my opinion?
And then you were talking about, I still want to be able to run. And I'm like, I don't know if I could run if I had 36Ds. Like, those are pretty good sized boobs.
Yeah, they are, and they were, and RIP them. But, sports bra technology has come a long way in the recent years. So I'm actually still kind of working that out because I've since had breast reconstruction surgery, but one of the pockets kind of disintegrated and fell apart. So I actually still need another reconstructive surgery.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about what you went through is just the toll that it takes on your whole body. I mean, mentally too. It seems almost like a crucible of sorts where you go in one person and you come out different, even physically, mentally, in every way.
100%. I wasn't, this news was such a shock. And I do talk about this like kind of in some of my online writings, but the reason my diagnosis was such a shock was I had no family history of cancer. And ovarian cancer tends to affect women in their 50s, 60s, 70s. It's definitely, not as common in people like me. I'm 36, or I was 36 at the time of my diagnosis. I had no other health issues. I exercised, ate well. So having no family history of cancer made the news so much more shocking because we just didn't suspect anything. But we later found out that I have a genetic mutation unbeknownst to us at the time, which is what caused my cancer. So it made everything make a lot more sense. But the diagnosis really was just this shocking bomb of news. And all of a sudden, I'm 36 with stage 3 ovarian cancer. And one of the thoughts one of the thoughts I had when I'm like lying in the hospital bed trying to like digest this, like just a few minutes after I found out, I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm 36. There's all this stuff I hadn't done. Like I haven't adopted a dog. That was one of the first things that popped into my mind. Like I can't die without having adopted a dog. So I haven't been to Hawaii. I haven't been skydiving. I haven't learned how to surf yet. Like just this list of things that pops into your head of like, I can't believe I haven't done this yet. So cancer really lit a fire under my behind to get these things done.
So did you make a list and are you like checking it off? Like,
yeah.
I've done that.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I still haven't adopted a dog or gone surfing yet, thanks to COVID. But I did write the book. I'm now turning the book into a little like mini series, just kind of blindly stepping my foot into script writing, which I have no idea what I'm doing. But the beauty of cancer is that it kind of helped me get over fear of not knowing what I'm doing. Like before cancer, I kind of wanted to write a book. I sort of started to write one, but I never really finished it. I didn't do anything with it. I was like, am I even capable? Now I just kind of don't care. Like I'll do things outside of my pay grade. I'll do things I'm so not experienced to do. And that's kind of beautiful because I probably would have been too scared to write this book or turn it into a screenplay. Now it's just like, go. So that's kind of a cool thing that came out of it. And now I'm remembering the previous point, which was how much it changes you physically and emotionally. 1,000%. I think it's impossible to go through something like this and not have it shift your entire being to the core, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, in every sense. I came out night and day difference compared to how I went in, but cancer actually brought so much good into my life. And as awful of an experience as it was, it's really turned my life into something a lot more meaningful, a lot more fulfilling. I take care of myself in every sense of the word that I wasn't before. So it really was a catalyst to living a better life. And I think a lot of survivors will say the same thing. It's not an experience you wish on anyone, but if you have to go through it, wow, what a growing experience for sure.
When you initially got the diagnosis, was your doctor like, yeah, 100%, you're going to beat this? Was he very positive about it?
He was. And that definitely helped calm some of my worries. But you hear the word cancer and you immediately jump to, I have 2 weeks to live.
Yeah. It's a scary word. It's a really scary word.
Totally. And I was like, how did this happen to me? And then, when he's giving us the official diagnosis a week after we did the biopsy, he did sort of look at me directly and say, you will beat this. We will get you into remission. And he's the expert. So, of course, hearing that was so reassuring because I have friends that have never heard those words. And so I don't take that for granted. I'm very blessed. I'm very lucky. I did have sort of a recurrence last year that was also scary. But, when you're faced with this, you don't have any choice but to just deal with it, right? People say the only way out is through, right? So it's like, okay, crap. Well, I'm in this scary, new, surreal existence. How do I get out of it? Just by going through it. So once you accept that, I think there's like some freedom in that because it's like, well, I got no choice now. I just have to like trudge on. I have to get through this. How am I going to do that? I'm going to do that to the best of my ability, whatever that means for me personally. And that's, I think, where a lot of the humor and those weird costumes and wigs and writing and meditation and eventually weightlifting, all of these great things started to come in during the coping process. So yeah, it really did bring a lot of goodness into my weird life.
Yeah, for everyone listening who hasn't had the privilege of watching your social feeds, Kim had, every color wig you could imagine, every style. And she had chemo cocktails. She'd take, it was probably just water, but she'd have like her martini glass and be taking pictures. So you just really made it seem, as fun as chemo can seem. But I was really impressed with how you went through that.
Thanks. I appreciate that. It was a gradual process too, because I remember the first 2 chemos, I just kind of brought supplies, not knowing what to expect. And eventually I was like, let's make this a little weird. So I was, what kind of like stuff can I bring from my kitchen to chemo? And I was like, oh, I have these completely adorable purple frosted martini glasses. Like, yes, go, checkmate. So I bring like a cocktail mixer and a martini glass. And obviously I posed for a photo as they were setting up the chemo. A couple of the nurses